Alright, welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. I've got the Colt 1903 Hammerless out today, and I'm going to do some minor repairs. If you've seen some of my other videos on this gun, you'd know that not long after my first range trip, a hairline crack turned up into one of the grips and it split into pieces. First thing to do here, though, is to clear the firearm. This is normally a given. It's something I'd do off camera, but people do like to call me out on it in the comments. Anywho, we're all good here. I'm not ready to replace the grips just yet, but I'm going to take them off here so that I can talk about it and have a good visual. The break in the grip almost looks clean through. With the amount of wear on the left grip, it matches with the consistency of carrying in a right-handed holster. This and a heavy amount of oil over the years likely contributed to the crack. I normally order my antique vintage firearm parts from Numeric Gun Parts Corps, but they didn't have any in stock. So I ordered a set of reproduction plastic Colt grips and hardware from a company in San Diego, California known as Triple K Manufacturing. They shipped the items in a very protective and professional looking package. I definitely think the $60 that I paid was very well worth it. Their online catalog boasts a wide variety of holsters, grips, hardware, and accessories. My main complaint is that it took about 10 days from purchase to arrive at my mailbox. I realize it's a small business and not Amazon, but compared to Numeric or Midway USA, it's a very, very, very slow process. I gave them 10 days, and at day 14, I'd planned on calling the company just to make sure that the order had gone through successfully and the part was going to be in the mail. They did email me a confirmation, but the status never updated on the USPS website showing that it actually shipped. It only showed a label created. The day before it arrived at home, I did get a status update that it had shipped and arrived at my local post office and was ready to deliver it to my house. The grips are very good quality with no real defects that I can tell or feel. The checkering is even and crisp and feels and looks good. The thread rings, called Escutcheons, are sold separately with a new grip screw. One thing that is not included is instructions. After reading a few 20-year-old firearm forums, 3 of the 4 that I found suggested using epoxy for securing the rings to the grips. The 4th writer suggested glue, so I'm just going to take some JB Weld epoxy. This is some strong stuff and sets quick. I would advise, if you're doing this job yourself, to test fit all the parts before assembly or any modifications are made. Most firearm vendors will state, including this one, that parts cannot be returned if they've been used or altered in some way, or if gunsmithing repairs have already been made. In the case of the JB Quick Weld, you have to mix the hardener in the steel compound before you can apply it. I always use a steady flat surface like this cardboard and something disposable to mix it, in this case a plastic spoon. It's also very messy, so I have to be careful about how I apply, where, and how much, because once it's dry, it's hard to deal with, and I don't really want to risk damaging the grips trying to scrape off excess material. I chose to use a toothpick here just to apply very small amounts to the inside of the ring cut out on each grip. This would let me keep from using too much at once without too much excess once I push the ring down inside of it, and it wouldn't make a mess everywhere. I'm carefully applying a small amount to each grip and then carefully placing the ring down inside of it. I've also got gloves on here too, because just like when you're using super glue or some other adhesive, I didn't want it to get all over my fingers and then smudge it onto the grips and make a mess and maybe risk getting some on the gun. And again, this stuff's super strong and super hard to deal with, so I wanted to try to use as many precautions as I could take here. All right, so here we are a couple days later. This is, in fact, a weekend. That was a Wednesday night that I put the grips together, put the epoxy in them. That JB Weld, it sets in about 6 minutes and cures in 4 to 6 hours. So there was no other reason than it was a weeknight. I had to go to work the next day, so I just set them and forgot them. and let them sit in the storage for a little while just to have a better opportunity to film this. So still got the older grips on here. I'm gonna pull them off, and I did talk to a guy recently that does woodworking. I suspected that these might be wood grips, but the way it cracked and just the way that it looked, he said that these were definitely plastic grips. They're not wood. So that being said, plastic was not used in 1907 when this gun was manufactured, so it's safe to say that these grips have been replaced somewhere along the way. So taking off the old plastic grips and putting on the new plastic grips. I like the way they look. I like the black color. I think it fits well with the old finish. It's obviously going to stand out to have new grips. As far as just a first glance, passing the eyeball test. But so I'm going to thread the new screw that came with the grips. I've got it even there with the frame. I'm going to thread it in by hand first, and then I'll take it the rest of the way with a screwdriver. And I've taken some flack in the past on these videos. Just make sure that if you're doing this, that you've got a screwdriver that fits the screw snugly. And this one came out of a gunsmithing kit, so it's doing the job pretty well. You don't want to mar up or beat up the screw too much, especially if you're working with original grips on a firearm. You want to try to take as much care as you can while you're doing this. So I'm threading it in. It feels pretty snug there. It's going in good. I was a little worried that maybe the epoxy set, maybe one of the escutcheons were sideways or maybe just canted just a little bit, but everything's set pretty well. So I'm pleased with that. I'm not going to force it in or torque it down too much. I'm just going to tighten it as tight as I can by hand without putting. The one thing I do notice is that the screw sticks out just a little bit on the edge there. It's not enough, I don't think, to cut your hand or hurt you, or even really just notice while you're holding the gun. You can't really feel it that much, but if you're inspecting it closely, you can definitely tell that this screw was a little bit longer than the one that came with it previously. I tried to fit the original screw in there with it, but it was just a little bit, the width was just a little bit too big for the rings. So I'm going to leave it. The grips don't feel loose at all. They feel pretty good, and it feels really good in your hand. I'm really excited about getting this thing back out to the range and putting a few rounds through it. I doubt I'll own the gun long enough, but I guess if I was that concerned about it, you could probably take the screw and maybe have somebody machine it down to the same length as the original one that came with the gun, just for aesthetics and just for appearance. But as far as the gun goes and my ownership, creating content, it's been a hit. I don't suspect that this thing's going to stick around too long. I'll probably end up trading or selling it away for something else, but it feels good. The grips feel solid. It doesn't feel like it's going to slip out of my hand or anything, you know, a sweaty palm or whatever out at the range on a hot day. I really feel like that this brought some life to an old gun, and I'm really excited about it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next one.